Hi, everyone. We are here, unable to record to cloud. Why? Hold on. There was a problem starting your recording. Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. We are here with Timothy Schnellenberger and Rabbi Mark from Recovery Boot Camp. Today is May 24th, and our topic tonight for Tim Talks is Drop the Rope, all about self-love and self-healing. So welcome, Tim and Rabbi Mark.
Hello. Hey guys.
Do you guys want to start off with just saying a little something and getting everyone into your topic, and then we can end up with asking questions?
I'm gonna let Mark take over. Y'all heard a lot of what I had said last time, and I'm gonna let Mark talk a little bit because he's pretty much the expert on the family dynamics.
Sounds wonderful. Welcome, Rabbi Mark.
Thank you, thank you. So basically, there's a little thing in the Al-Anon book, their big book in essence. It's called Friends and Families of Alcoholics and Addicts, and it says that if an addict or an alcoholic, declares that the sky's orange or breaks a promise, that we don't actually have to do the same things we've always been doing, even though we're unaware of our behavioral patterns. And the reason they give the example like this: if you're holding one end of a rope and someone picks up the other end and starts to pull, most of us instinctually, right, our default setting would be to pull back in either defensive manner or to protect ourselves. And we never realize that if we become aware that we're making that as a choice, we can also change that choice and we can drop the rope, because there's no tug of war unless both people are engaged in that conflict. And so when you're holding the end of the rope and you're holding your line, as it were, on enabling and boundaries, and someone starts to forcibly attempt to, overcome them or break them or circumvent them, you don't have to get into a conflict with that person. You can easily just realize that I have made a decision to establish this boundary, and I am no longer going to fight to enforce it. I'm just going to remove myself from the equation. There is no tug of war unless both people pull. And really, the key to self-love and self-development is to be aware of the choices you are making instinctually in the moment, that you've habituated yourself to, that you've become accustomed to, because it seems that that is the organic thing you should do. And when you evaluate those, you can make other choices, which initially may seem to be antithetical, right? Or counterintuitive. Like, you would think that if somebody attacks me, my response should be to defend or fight. But you can step away. Non-engagement is a practical way to approach these things. So in essence, what we're doing is we're talking about specifically, how do we become aware of the habituated behaviors we're doing now? How do we examine them objectively? And then how do we conscientiously, through the help of our sponsors or our peer group, or people that support us in the same thing, through objective view, how do we change those behaviors and then institute them? That is the key to development of self-love and safety in these type of dynamics. That's bottom line.
Gotcha. Okay, so what are some of the things we can do besides? I mean, I know it sounds so easy just to not engage, but it's so hard, especially as an addict's mother, because it's part of our psyche that we have to go not just the fact that we want to protect and help and heal our child, but also because we we feel like sometimes the only time they call us is once a month or once when they're whatever, they're in chaos or whatever. And of course you want to talk to them, right? Because you haven't heard from them in so long. So what are some of the things we can do to either help our guilt or to help us realize that, dropping the rope isn't very easy sometimes?
Right. Well, the first thing to do is, support is huge, right? Sponsorship is huge. Having a fellowship is huge. Having other eyes that can look at the circumstance without the emotional investment. And I understand that as an individual, it's nearly impossible to separate yourself from that emotional investment in the moment. And so you can allow yourself to have that engagement when they call, try to mentally take notes or even jot down some things about how it went. And then in your peer support area, you can bring those notes or, you know, the replay of the story to your support, and you can discuss it. And you can say, you know, I felt manipulated at this time, but this went pretty good. And you can figure out, in essence, somewhat of a playbook, which then you can possibly keep next to the phone that has certain things that you're willing to allow interaction with and certain things you're not. Because you have the capacity to direct a conversation, even though they're hammering you consistently to make it go their way. You know, redirection is huge, right? That way you keep engaged in the discussion, but you also don't get manipulated at the same time, right? So taking notes about the conversations, evaluating them later, talking to your peers about them, and getting input like, what do you think I should have done differently, or is this too much, or is this not enough? These are really important things. Support is the key, because your mental health as the parent is never as strong as the identified patient's sickness in a one-on-one confrontation. But in a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1 or a 10-on-1, you stand a much better chance, right?
Yeah, that's great advice, taking notes. I never thought about that because in the passion of the moment, we're all so heated or we're so upset or whatever. We don't even think, you know, you don't think about the conversation until after. So that's great. Great advice, Rabbi. Let's go ahead and open the floor to some questions and see what some of our moms have to ask you tonight. Who would like to ask the first question?
So I was just saying that I think a lot of the behavior that the parents get into a habit of is always being retroactive instead of proactive. And if we're proactive when we're thinking about what boundaries to set or what could potentially happen, how am I going to handle an argument, should be done during a time of peace. You know, when you're not in an argument with your kid or trying to enforce a boundary, you know, have it all like mapped out in your head beforehand.
Right. Also, it's going to be a near impossibility to make the first interaction proactive. You're going to need that to be your test case, right? Or a series of those.
Information.
Right.
Yeah.
You gather the information and then you create the proactive analysis. How you want to.
Outside of the emotional.
Correct. Because and even that's why notes are important, because when you try to recall the conversation or you share it with your friends on the phone an hour later, you got to remember that you're emotionally invested in it. And we have this twist, right? Because the default setting for humans is to really not own their parts completely. We want to hyper focus on the trauma, the dynamic of the circumstance, right? And we don't want to own our parts in it. So taking notes pretty effectively, even in like a shorthand or just bullet points, allows us to recall the conversation with more clarity and be less emotionally invested in it and look at it more objectively. I think that's huge.
That's great. Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect sense. Moms, I'm sure one of you at least has a question so far. Anyone? A
I'll
question?
ask a question.
Sure, go
I'll
for
ask a question, babe. Okay, my question is, my son is in active addiction. He's living on the streets in San Diego. My thing is always to, I guess, be ready for when he's ready. And that becomes very confusing because I have, in the past, I have had rehab set up, I've had detoxes set up, and this, that, and the other. And then he goes back and forth and never ends up going. So I feel like I burn my bridges. And it's hard because in my head, I'm not waiting for that call that he's dead. I'm waiting for that call from him that he's ready. And so I get really confused about that because I don't know what to do. Like, you know, where do I even go to set these things up? I mean, I have in the past just reached out to, you know, strangers online, and I guess that's my confusion. Should I even be ready for when he makes that call?
Well, yeah, you should, because really the boundary between enabling and helping is simple. We can make it very simple. You are not allowed and absolutely cannot do for the addict what they can and must do for themselves. If you engage in that behavior, you stepped over the boundary of enabling. So you can have a folder that you have reached out to different treatment centers. You know, you can call us here. You can call other places. You can have your own therapist maybe help you with this. You can get a dossier together, right? And it's not just that you jump into it after the first call. You have to set like a standard. So the standard is, okay, I'm going to do some research. Even though you've already had the research done, this is what you tell them. I want you to call me back in an hour and reaffirm that you're committed for this. I want you to not drink or not get high in the next 2 hours and call me back, because it's going to take me time to help you. If you are generally committed, they'll be willing to attempt that. Even though they may not succeed, they will attempt it, which means that they will call you back, right? And again, it's about becoming proactive versus retroactive. You don't want to pull all your cards out the first chance, because they're calling in desperation to try and say, oh, I just need help, even though they don't really want it. They have to be willing to put the steps forward. And if that means, going to a detox, going to the hospital, listen, especially in California. So in every state in the nation, it's hard to get into detox. However, it is easy to go to any ER in this country and tell the doctors that you absolutely have a plan to commit suicide and what that plan is. Even if it's not true, you make that shit up. And they are duty bound to put you on a 72-hour hold. 5150 in California, 302 in New York, Baker Act here in Florida. They are duty bound to make sure that you're safe, not a danger to self, not a danger to others. While they are in the psych ward, once they've been admitted, they then say, I'm an addict, this is why I want to kill myself, I need to get detox so that I can go to treatment. They will be able to call you from there, and then that's really a major thing to say, for the addict to go to the ER and say that they're going to kill themselves and present a plan. You don't get to walk out of that one for at least 3 days, which means that's the time. That's the modicum. That's really the standard of commitment they have to show. You need to be ready, but you're not going to do it for them. That's the key.
So I should actually advise him to do that, because he's been to an ER twice and they let him go. Okay.
Well, he has to have a plan. He has to present a plan.
Okay.
They have a standard.
All right. Yeah, because he's been there twice and they sent him walking, and he's on meth. So he's like so psychotic, just walking around in a daze. And so they said he had to go to detox. He showed up to a rehab and they said he had to go to detox. So he never made it to detox. He was there. He was almost at a rehab, but they said he had to go to detox. They sent him on his way and he went back to the streets. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Who is our next question for Tim and Mark tonight? Anyone?
I scared them.
No, I don't think so. They're just being quiet.
No, I have a question, but I'm not sure. I don't know what kind of questions we're supposed to be asking.
You ask whatever you feel like asking, Miss Mary. Okay? The floor is yours.
Okay. I guess my question that I have wondered, my son is in a sober living right now, and he has been for about 6 months, but he's supposed to graduate July 8th. And he is very distant with our family. He does not call me. He does not, unless it's something about school or very seldom. He does not use the opportunity to reach out, which is so unlike him. It's like when I knew he was either on bottom or really struggling is when he was reaching out to me. So maybe that's, maybe this is part of his recovery. I just don't know what to make of this, and so I don't reach out to him a lot. If I call him, he definitely talks to me and tells me he loves me, but he does not reach out, and he's not reached out to any of his brothers, and his therapist does not seem to know why he's doing that. And so the closer we get to him coming out makes me wonder if he's really in recovery. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And it's a fine line, because on one hand, it could be an indicator of him just doing time and waiting to come out and do whatever it is he's done.
But it can also be what I had to do when I got sober. I had to set up some boundaries with my family, and I wasn't prepared to be able to do very boundaries that had a lot of minutia to it, where it was very very detailed boundaries. It had to be black or white for a little while, where I couldn't even see my mom for a minute because I knew that if I got sucked back into the cycle, which she hadn't gotten help yet, that it was going to be bad for me and I was going to become emotional and it was going to be difficult for my sobriety to get through. So little by slowly, I was able to reacclimate into my family's life as I felt stronger in my own boundaries. Or you have another?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to dovetail, I think that's absolutely correct, because a lot of times in early recovery, you're talking about intense work on self. You know, we avoid girls, we avoid, you know, relationships. And sometimes we have to actually avoid the family because it's a stressor, even knowing, not putting the blame anywhere, but understanding that I have enmeshment issues. And when I get too close to that, it's super easy for me to fall back on the feeling that my family's going to save me. And it negates the work I've been doing up till now, which a lot of times under sponsored direction, and many times until someone's at their 9th step, they are in deep shame, right, and guilt about what they did that you may not even know about in their use, and they're really trying to get themselves squared away emotionally and spiritually to get to the point where they can start to fix those things and make true amends. So they may be aware of non-enmeshment, they may have guilt, they may understand boundaries. Sometimes just a disconnect is important to hyper-focus on self.
And I don't want to throw my mother under the bus, but like what Rabbi just said is that I wasn't secure in my recovery yet to be able to put myself in that position.
Right.
So, but you know, alternatively, I like that he said that he's telling you that he loves you and all that, which is great. So he's just not avoiding you completely and not wanting to talk to you. You know, but it's just it's the amount of times that he's calling. Is that correct?
Well, he does not call me unless it's for a reason, unless there's a reason the therapist needs to know something. I mean, she stays in touch with me, but he does not. And, you know, that makes sense because I asked him if I could come see him and, you know, maybe just hang out, let him show me around the area. And he was just like, well, let me look at my work schedule, and then he didn't get back with me. And so I said, you know, if it's not okay, if that's not okay with you, you know, please, you know, be straight with me and just say it's not okay. And he just said, it's just not a good time, Mom. You know, it's like I feel your anxiety, and when I feel your anxiety, I get anxious, and so it's just not a good time. So he has been straight up with me on that, and so I can definitely see what y'all are saying.
Yeah, you just answered your own question just now. And what you have to remember is in early recovery, we have spent years damaging ourselves emotionally, and without sounding harsh, when we come into recovery, we are literally emotionally retarded. We literally are that way. We have been slow to grow and slow to develop, and we're pediatric at best. And even the smallest thing causes us to have a deep emotional lability because we've been either sublimating our feelings or just living in them out loud too much. And so finding that balance, and even though you're not projecting anxiety, he's receiving that anxiety. Plus he may have guilt about what he did. There may be shame. He's in process, you know, and a lot of times, you know, we got to work, we got to go to meetings, we got to go to group. There's a lot for us to do, and there is a time constraint because initially there's a lot of structure. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank y'all very much.
Hey, Mary.
Yes, ma'am.
And gentlemen, thank you very much for presenting this afternoon. I just have one tip that I've used very early on in my son's recovery. I had a friend that just flat out told me, do not get entangled in his recovery. And those words sunk into me, and so I created my own little picture, and I have it framed it sits on the buffet with those words, and then a rose vine border around it. And what it signifies to me is those flowers are beautiful, and I love my son, and that's all good, and they draw me in. But if I get too close, those thorns will get me every time. So it's just been really helpful for me as a visual to just, he has to do it his way, because my way for his recovery isn't his way, and my way won't work. Right. So just a thought.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Any of those tricks are great. For me in my early recovery, I had to write everything down. I had to write down with different people what my boundaries were with them. And if they were able to hear it, I would sit down and show them in black and white. You know, this is what I'm okay with, this is what I'm not okay with. You know, when I started becoming more fluent in my own sobriety. But visual tricks, you know, when my therapist and I were working on our inner child, she made me go get a picture of myself when I was, I think, 3, and put it on my desk. You know, so I knew that I was parenting, you know, myself again. You know, those little things are great. I love that visual that you just talked about.
And when you engage in your own recovery as a parent or a member of an Al-Anon group or a Nar-Anon group or any families of addiction group, you're actually engaged in doing your own mental health inventories, because the best possibility you have to affect your loved one's recovery is when you yourself become the spiritual exemplar of growth and recovery, and in doing so, it both you know, enables them to see that it works from on the parent side, as well as inspiring them to catch up, to really keep up. It's important, and it also gives you the option of having sponsors and people that know you intimately and know the circumstance intimately, that you can bounce things off. Because the old adage is true: 2 heads are absolutely better than 1, without a doubt.
That's probably right.
2 heads. You can't see us? No. Only we can see us? That's ridiculous.
Well, I have a comment to make.
Sure.
Okay, so we've been doing, my son will be 28 next month, and we've been doing this for about 9 years. He's had long periods of recovery and whatnot. I think 9 years ago, I thought, I've got this. I'm so recovered. Everything I'm doing is right. And just recently, in the last few months, I've said everything I was doing is wrong for the most part. So he had a hospitalization last week, and I came in and I said something, and he said, I don't want you here. So I got up and I walked away. And through the weekend, I struggled a little bit. Then Monday, I got up and I said, I'm perfectly fine with this. And now I'm in this phase of I'm staying out of his way. I'm not really hearing from him. We had business to discuss last week. I haven't heard from him this week. I don't know what his status is. And the issue is I'm starting to get anxiety of, like, should I text him or call him? I'm even going into battle with myself of, like, don't do it, don't do it. So I just wondered what your thoughts are on that.
Well, is he safe?
Yeah, I think he's clean and sober.
Well, if he's safe, then you have zero efficacy in changing his behavior at this moment. Yeah. You have zero ability to change his particular circumstance or reactions, which means you only have the capacity and ability to change yours. Which means that, yes, drop the rope. That is the title of this thing. You do not have to tug of war. And trust me, it's not a smooth continuum. It's not a straight uphill thing. There's jagged peaks and valleys, and people go up and down, and depression occurs, and all kinds of crap occurs. And it's, you know, it's about the continuum, trusting the process, believing, doing your own work, and having your own boundaries. Listen, if it's business and it relates to him and he needs to make the call, let him make the call. Like I said, your most basic rule of thumb for enabling is I will not do anything that he can absolutely do for himself. No way, no how, never, end of story.
And you don't.
Yeah.
You know, you got to take care of yourself so that you're not all bound up in knots all weekend long or all week long. You got to take care of yourself so you're healthy enough to do what you need to do. You know,
Yeah, and it's real, and I'm going up and down. Some days I'm totally, completely like I'm cool with this, and then other days like today I'm struggling just a little bit. Like maybe I should call him and say hi, I love you, or whatever. But he was very clear he didn't want to talk to me right now.
Okay, so let me give you some practical suggestions. Whenever you get
Thanks.
anxiety and you want to call him when you know you probably shouldn't, I suggest you take a Mr. Bubble bath. Let me tell you something, that simple thing saved me in early recovery. When I got stressful and tense, I got into the bathroom, I got Mr. Bubble for 99 cents at the 99-cent store, and I had a great chewing gum Mr. Bubble bath for 20 minutes. Nobody bothered me, not the dogs, not anybody, and I got to speak to whatever power there was in the universe and relax. I'm telling you, auditory affirmations that you're going to be okay in the space. There's a difference between isolating and spending alone time with your creator. When you get stressed, you need to spend some alone time with your creator.
the other thing is, I wonder how many people here have sponsors that are inside this webinar. I mean, I don't know if we can, but anyway.
Show of hands.
Do you have a sponsor?
I don't have a sponsor.
I'm sorry? The Leah? Do you have a sponsor?
I have a group,
Okay.
but I don't have a personal sponsor.
Do you have one particular person in your group that you identify with and they know your story and all that?
Yeah, the whole group knows. We all know each other's stories. A group of about 10 moms that get together once a week.
When you want to call your son, give one of them a call instead.
Okay,
You know,
great.
it's very similar to the drug addicts situation. You know, when I was getting sober, way back when, you know, when I wanted to call the drug dealer, I called my sponsor instead, and it was able to talk me off the ledge and like really make it clear for me. And it was he was very objective where I was going, and it reminded me that, you know, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and give me some suggestions to in the moment. You know, I needed to talk to somebody that knew my story but wasn't emotionally involved with my moment.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but if you call someone in your group, I guarantee you that the majority of the time, they're going to start talking about their crisis. You're going to start offering them objective suggestions and be lost and lose your own crisis, right?
Right.
There's a line in the big book, and it's in Working with Others. It's the very first line in chapter 7 for alcoholics, and it says, practical experience has shown us that nothing ensures immunity against the first drink as intensive work with another alcoholic, because our problems become pale in comparison to the objective view of someone else's. Helping them helps us.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as you're outside of your out of your own head and start worrying, helping somebody else out, helps me every time. That's why I ended up owning a treatment center. Yeah, because the more I know that that's the solution for me to be helping somebody else. When I'm helping somebody else, I can't be all up in my own problems.
Right.
Right. Gotcha.
And
Good advice.
When you mirror a solution to someone else, after you say it to somebody else, all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's my own solution.
Yeah, you usually hear yourself telling yourself. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah, and thank you, guys. I just wanted to make one quick point, if I could, or ask if I'm doing something right, actually. My son's been in treatment 5 times, 6 times. He's in treatment again now. The only difference between them that didn't work and now is I found my recovery through Nar-Anon. So now I'm kind of letting him do his own thing, and I'm not getting involved in his stuff. I'm getting involved in mine. And in our TAM Nar-Anon group here, we are all working our steps together right now, so we don't want to be sponsors for each other until we're all through with our steps, of course. But like you said, we are kind of like we're each other's sponsors right now, because we do have that group, like you said, that we can go to when we need to and talk and talk. And with me, when I start getting anxious, and just exactly like you said, service, I start doing service. And as soon as I do my service, it's like everything that you had that was a problem is gone, and you feel good afterwards. You have this peace inside of you afterwards. Is that how I should be doing? Am I on the right track?
You are, absolutely. The only question I have is, in this group, this Naranon group that you have, where you guys are in essence sort of sponsoring each other, is there a mentor in this group who's actually been through the steps prior themselves?
I
Because
have.
that,
Yes, I
there you
have been through all the steps, but I can't be sponsored to everyone, of course.
I understand that, but
Right.
in the group setting, you need to be somewhat of a mentor, because you don't want it to be the blind leading the blind, because we all know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and a little bit of experience and practical knowledge goes a long, long way.
Yes, and the hardest thing I had to learn was, in Narnon, and as mothers and anyone, I guess, with an addict, is we seem to falter off when our addict is doing well. We don't come to the
Mhm.
meetings like we're supposed to. We take, oh, I'm going to go out to the park instead. I'm going to do that. We don't stay strong and concise in our recovery because everything's going good right now. But when it all blows up, then we're back in there. So it's really important, I feel, to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, no matter what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's when the transference happens, right? You get to transmit that information to somebody else, and that keeps you active. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, so many people relapse because things go well for them and they stop going to meetings and they stop participating in their own recovery. It's the same thing. We have to remember that the things that we did to get where we are, if we don't continue to do them, we don't get to stay where we are. That's the bottom line.
But the thing that, to piggyback off of that, the way that we continue to do everything you just said is gratitude.
Yep.
If we are having a good day with our loved one who is addicted, or if I'm having a good day because I'm sober for the day, I need to stay grateful. A grateful drunk will never drink. And also, and I'm sorry, I'm not sorry, but I got to keep paralleling what you guys are doing as recovering families and what addicts do. Is very similar. Similar program, similar emotional struggles. That's why I keep referring back and forth between what I did as an addict and also what I do as because I have so many addicts in my life. But being grateful during those times, recognizing that if it wasn't for all the hard work we did when the difficult times were happening, we wouldn't be in the spot we are today where things are going well. Got to stay grateful. Every morning that I wake up, and I recommend it for you guys as well, if you are having a good experience with your son or daughter, wake up and say, thank you, God. Yep. Thank you, God, for another day where I'm not like flipping out and I got some sleep last night because he didn't call me. Thank you for, every little bit of thing so we don't fall off, because I see it all the time in AA where people get, comfortable. They get the couple things that they want, get the girl, get the car, things going well, get the job. And then all of a sudden, they're back drinking again because they're not grateful for those things. These are all gifts. And also, you guys have been through such a difficult time with your kids. When you have the good times, you gotta stay grateful. Yeah. And remember what you did to get there. Yeah. Yep.
I agree, and I'm thanking Jesus every little day. I mean, every little thing. I'm like, I know that was you. Thank you. I know that was you. Thank you. But I'll tell you what, I really feel like this time I'm catching it because I'm out of his. He has to work his recovery, and I've separated them. I have completely separated them. So.
One other thing I want to say is, I forget who was speaking. I think it was Kim, maybe, about when she said, I got this, and both Mark and I laughed. Because that is the phrase that we all have said just before we relapsed. Yep. I got this. And we forgot that it's not, yes, we did a lot of work, but, through the grace of God, that's why we're in a good spot. Yep. I hope that phrase never comes out of my mouth again in like an affirmative ever again, because that every time I relapsed throughout my life, it was like I got to a point, everything was good. I said, I got this. and then it went to hell. It may not have been the next day, but at least within 6 months it was done.
Wonderful. That's true.
I got this.
The two things. The first one is what Tim said about the mirroring of the fellowships. They're literally identical. And in fact, Naranon and all Family 12 Steps came out of Al-Anon, which came out of Lois Wilson, and she started the first group, and it wasn't called Al-Anon at that time. It was called COAA, Co-Alcoholics Anonymous, because you, in essence, by osmosis or proximity, become alcoholic as well, right? So you need the same type of approach to transcend it. And I tell this to all the guys that I work with. When we talk about this idea of gratitude, so, you know, you could be the fastest running back in the NFL, but if you never looked at the quarterback, you wouldn't catch a single pass, right? The spiritual development of any 12-step program is basically, spirituality is not teaching you to run faster or have better hands. It's teaching you to take that skill and look at the quarterback so you can catch the ball. That's what it is. The work we do doesn't guarantee the results. It guarantees that we're present when the opportunity of those results arise.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Mary, I think, has a question for you, gentlemen.
Sure.
Yeah, going back to what y'all were talking about with Leah, and we were talking about the self-help and the gratitude and being able to talk to someone else and reach out to them. I know that for me, as a codependent, I definitely love to reach out to other people, and, you know, I can share my experience and my hope with them and my strength with them, but in so many ways I feel like I'm doing avoidance. I mean, it gives me that immediate good feeling, but then when I step back at the end of the day, it's like I've avoided all of my own issues, and I'm still dealing with those, feeling like, who's there to listen to me? I'm reaching out to other people, but then I'm avoiding my own issues somehow, and I don't have a sponsor, and I don't know who to reach out to for my own issues, for my own self-help.
Right. Well, that's the thing. So that's why sponsorship is so important. There's a saying that we say, you take your problems to your sponsor and your solution to your group, right? And that's how we operate. I mean, I get it. And it's even harder if you know that you have a pre-existing leaning towards codependency. Like, you know that, because even engaging in helping can sometimes feel like you're active in your own certain addictive pathologies or your addictive behaviors. So yes, what you have to remember is you have to go by this kind of basic codependent, I guess it's the motto, right? And the motto is simple. It's this: it's how empty of me to be so full of you, right? There has to be place for both, you and me. So you're not, it may manifest or seem like you're avoiding when you're helping someone else, but it's not, if you can then take that to your own sponsor and your own support. Because if you give away everything you have and you end up empty, then you suffer too. It's not about giving it away, it's about sharing it. And so you need to have your own support. Absolutely. I cannot encourage you to get a sponsor more than this. Get a sponsor. That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know our time is coming to an end, but we have one more mom who would like to ask a question. And maybe our next session, if there's still more to ask, we can continue more on this topic. Charlotte had a question for you, gentlemen, before you have to go.
Okay, my question is, my son is mentally ill. He was hospitalized 13 times by the age of 13, actually, due to bipolar, and at one point he was on lithium, and I mean, he's definitely mentally ill, but how do I separate the mental illness from the addiction? Because I've set my boundaries, and I've been doing pretty good about sticking with my boundaries,
right,
but I always feel like, and I think it's me making excuses, I need to be there because he's mentally ill.
Right.
And I
Okay.
don't know how to separate that.
Okay. So again, let me just start off by saying, get a sponsor, number one. And number two, you have to understand that one of the main problems with what's called co-occurring disorder or dual diagnose is a lot of times we have the feeling that intensive work in one will minimize or mitigate or work on the other. It's not true. Fixing one doesn't fix the other. However, what is true is not fixing one definitely makes the other worse, okay? So both of them have to be distinctly attacked with a vigorous effort. What you have to do is, like Tim said, where he had to write down his own boundaries, you have to write down for you the difference between the addictive behaviors that he possesses and the mental illness realities. And you have to be willing to operate within the boundaries of the mental illness ones, specified, specific, and you have to be willing not to allow that type of behavior in the addictive ones. And I know it's difficult to understand because the symptoms look so similar sometimes.
Right. It's like they feed off of each other.
Yes, they feed off of each other. So you need some professional help and some sponsor assistance to understand, to delineate, to distinguish between this one and this one specifically, right? And again, doing for them what they can do for themselves, even in the mental health arena, is still enabling. Do you understand? And if you go by that baseline, you can be more unique. Sometimes it's necessary for you to be more helpful in the mental health arena. But again, the same standard applies. I will not do something for them that they are capable and must do for themselves.
Like take their medication.
Like take their medication for them. You cannot take their medication for them. It's hard enough to make sure that they do, to enforce that, right? We know that this is a real thing. So you have to separate those two things and have almost two separate guidelines for yourself, right?
Right.
I know
See,
it's hard.
it's so hard because I feel the guilt.
I get it.
feel like I'm his mother. I'm all he's got. I need to be there. But it's hard for me to separate the addiction and the mental illness. And he doesn't treat himself for it. I mean, I've begged him to get back on his meds. Of course, when he was living at home, I forced him to take them. I mean, I watched him swallow them and, but he doesn't like his meds. He says they don't make him feel normal.
Right.
But
What we do here, just throwing this out at Recovery Bootcamp, is if somebody self-medicates or doesn't take their medication, we consider that self-medicating as well. That's a relapse.
Mm-hmm.
We treat it just like a relapse. If they decide to take their own medication or something that wasn't talked about or prescribed, that's a relapse. Even if it's a mental health medication, they have to take it every day. If they decide to fake it, that's a relapse.
Yep.
So basically, I need to look at it as him making the choice not to take his
That's a
meth.
relapse.
He's making it's the same thing as making a choice to go do meth.
That's right.
It is the same thing.
Yeah, because that's what he prefers as his medication is meth.
Right. And this is what so I'm going to assume that he's bipolar schizophrenic, probably is his diagnosis.
He is, yes. Very
Okay.
bad.
Okay, so this is the thing. They just released an AMA article a few months ago. There's a new kind of trend in the bipolar schizophrenic and schizophrenic affective disorder that they are specific, and you tend to find it with people that like stimulants like meth or coke, that there's a lot of schizophrenics that specifically don't take their meds because they're willing to suffer through the depressive stage so that they can be manic for a week because they get incredibly high off the mania and they feel like they have a ton accomplished. It's actually becoming considered a new addictive disorder, right? So this is a real thing, right? So med compliance for him is the equivalent of sobriety. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so Timothy Schnellenberger and Rabbi Mark from Recovery Boot Camp in Delray Beach, Florida, thank you both for being here tonight. We love our Tim Talks. We love our sessions with you, and we can't wait to have ours next month with you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We do have our online Narnon meeting starting here in 5 minutes. So, ladies, if you would like to stick around, go ahead and stick around. But I do know our gentlemen need to be going. So thank you so much, Tim and Mark, for giving us your time and helping us out so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys are very helpful.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.